Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope. This is where you get to hear how to feel happy, balanced, and worthwhile, how to make that lonely ache vanish and feel empowered, confident, and secure. I'm Lauren Abrams, and today we're talking to the groundbreaking leadership coach, love-filled cancer survivor, and advocate for positive thinking and hope, Laura Rittenhouse. Laura's built a powerhouse advising top executives based upon the power of words. Her motto, "Our words create our future," is something we can all live by, and actually, it's how we manifest. Currently finishing her book, The Blessings of Cancer. Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope, Laura Rittenhouse.
Thank you, Lauren. That's a wonderful introduction.
Yeah. Now, your business is based upon knowing who to trust and who not to. Their candor is how I understand it. And I believe our words create our future. Do you believe that in all areas of your life? Is that how you basically operate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not to say I don't engage in some BS at times. Sure, healthy BS is part of life. But I also know that I've chosen to live a life of integrity. And what does that mean? That means my actions are going to be aligned with my words as much as I possibly can. And I look for that in other people. And if I don't see that in other people, I will not spend a lot of time.
So what specifically do you look for?
Well, I'm looking for people who, well, what are we, first of all, what is candor? The word candor comes from a Latin word candere, and that means to shine light, to illuminate, like the word candle.
I like
So
that.
candor is the act of shining light into dark places. And we, as I can't, I mean, I think we would all agree, it appears that we are living at a time in history where there's a lot of darkness, and there's a great need to shine light into that darkness. The last thing I'll say about that is, okay, so darkness to me is a lot of BS, right? When people are not in integrity and just to say whatever is on their mind. And so it's important, it's so important in this time of darkness that everyone who cares about this chooses to be a champion of candor.
Oh, I love the candle. That so works for me. Yeah, yeah, that's so great. So how do you know who to trust and who not to? You
well,
you like that, huh?
Well, I mean, I think over time, if you have a low tolerance for BS, over time, you learn to trust your instincts because, well, I'll tell you a quick story. A long time ago, I was invited to be on the board of this small, mid-sized, mid-cap company. They were doing their first IPO, and I was involved in as a board member, I was involved in supporting the CEO and doing all this. And as I was in conversations, I began to get concerned because I heard things that just didn't seem to add up. I'm a financial expert. I was an investment banker. And if it doesn't, I mean, you know when you're getting not getting the straight story. So finally, one day, I realized I had to resign. I had to resign from the board. And the problem was they were in the middle of this IPO, which was not a good thing to have a board member resign. But I decided to go out to the company and do this in person. I got on a plane, which as it was going up into the sky, the co-pilot ran out of the cockpit with a fire extinguisher. I said, "Oh my God, the plane is on fire, and I have to get out to Minneapolis to resign from this board. What am I going to do?" Well, obviously, I'm here today, so that's another story. But as it turned out, I resigned. IPO went forward, but then it didn't happen. And the CEO, some months later, he came to New York for a meeting and he disappeared. He disappeared. And all I can tell you is that fast forward a number of years later, he was picked up by the FBI for a litany of wrongdoing, wrongdoing. In other words, we all know when somebody is telling the truth and when somebody isn't. But what often happens is we're saying, well, I don't trust it. This person must be fine. So what I've learned is that our words really create the future, and they tell us who we can trust and what we can trust.
Okay. So it's your intuitive sense. You trust your gut.
It's very much a gut feeling, yeah. And what I find interesting is how many of us know this, and yet then we don't trust that. And oftentimes that becomes a problem.
You've recently recovered from cancer or been declared cancer free. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. And I know you aren't very vocal about it. I'm not really sure, but you're writing a book about the gifts of cancer, which some people might not really get. Do you want to tell us what those gifts are?
Well, it's so interesting, Lauren. It goes back to the conversation we just had. So knowing, and by the way, I have shown that people can get quite wealthy by analyzing the words of CEOs and knowing which ones they can trust and which ones they can't trust, just by words. So with this evidence, I said, well, gosh, here I am with cancer. I never expected this. I was with three very close friends and relatives over time, walked with them on their journeys. The journeys ended and they succumbed to the cancer. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to focus on healing my cancer. And what I realized when I became part of the whole cancer establishment was that the doctors there, they don't use the H word. They don't want to talk about healing. And I kind of understand it, right? They can't promise anything. But I was determined that I would talk about it. And they could talk all they wanted to about the treatments, and I would go for the treatments, but I was always looking for the hope. So, for example, one time I was talking with my radiologist and I started to cry. So it was a male doctor, and I could see he was getting uncomfortable with my tears. And I said, oh, Dr. A, please don't be upset. These tears are signs of my healing. Can you help me to celebrate these tears?
And what
And
was the
he
reaction?
did. He did. I could still
Wow.
feel he was uncomfortable, but he did. He smiled, and we sat there for some moments just in silence, kind of enjoying that space. And for me, anyway, feeling hopeful.
Yay. That must have been unusual for this doctor.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's exactly right. That is exactly right. That's one of the lessons. Okay, so what the book that you referred to is what I call the 5 blessings of cancer, or am I crazy? And so these are practices that I invented that I knew if I that in order to come out on the right side of cancer, these are things I just instinctively knew I had to do. So how can cancer be a gift? How can cancer be a gift? Well, blessing number 1, what is that? Cancer, it's freedom. Cancer gives you the gift of freedom. It frees me from the delusion I'm going to live forever. So every day I get is a gift. Every day I open the curtains and I see the trees and they're brighter than ever. I hear the birds, they're singing stronger than ever. I mean, every day you get is a gift. It's a glorious feeling. So, and then I added others as I went through the experience.
So you get a level of gratitude you didn't experience before.
Oh, very much so, very much so. And to be able, I know. I mean, it changed me. So even today, here I am on the other side of cancer, and I continue to live with gratitude, with hope, and seeing the evidence. Now, what I was also going to say earlier is that, what it means is you have to take responsibility. You have to love yourself so much that you're going to be the director. You're the CEO of your healing. You're the CEO of your cancer experience. You're going to decide what kind of experience you're going to have. So, for example, the hospital where I was, they had somebody called a patient advocate. And if you felt that your doctor was not supporting you, you went to that person and they got you a new doctor. I did that 3 times.
Good for you.
And a lot of people would be afraid to do that because they say, well, the doctor knows everything, what do I know? But if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel that your doctor is on your team, it's time to get a new doctor.
Well, that goes back to what you were saying with trusting your gut and your intuitive sense.
Exactly. Exactly. Which I think it's, it's trusting your gut, but I think that gets strengthened by and also inspired by a commitment to love yourself.
Now, I have a question though. How would somebody get to that kind of gratitude level for every day and appreciation for life without getting cancer? I mean, people don't want to have to
Yeah.
go through that to get to that level of yay, I'm alive. I love my life and things like that without going through.
Well, well, all you have to do is you would say, "Hey, it's a new day. I don't need cancer to remind me that this day is a gift."
Yes.
And I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to celebrate the thunderstorm. I'm going to celebrate the traffic jam. I'm going to celebrate seeing a friend I haven't seen in 15 years, and we're going to hug each other so tight.
Well, that's going to be true once the pandemic's over and we get to actually hug each other again.
Oh, can't wait for that.
I
Can't
know.
wait.
Yes. Okay, so keep going with the other gifts of.
Oh, okay. So blessing number one. Blessing number two is choose positivity. Choose positivity. So if you've now discovered that, cancer is bringing you this great gift, already you're in a positive mode. But a lot of people would say, and there were some days, let me tell you, I was not feeling too positive. Cancer is not well, I don't think any disease is logical. It's not logical. It doesn't say, okay, this is 5 days, so now this is going to happen. It doesn't work that way. So, but it was just, we all have, we can't change what has happened, but we can change how we feel about, we can change what we choose to do about what's happened. And that gives us power. And that's a really positive thought. That's a really positive action. Like, okay, I can't change the fact that for some reason my body decided to go into cancer, but look at all these things that I can do. Look at all these things I can learn that I couldn't learn before. Look at how what a blessing I now see life is, because I'm being tested. I mean, I'm being challenged in a way that, well, and of course, what's at the bottom of that? Fear. And what's at the bottom of fear? Death. So I decided, and I still do, use a different word. I don't use the word death. I say, well, then these people transitioned. People transitioned. I mean, because the word death means like nothingness, extinction, right? But we know, what do we know about what's really happened? We know all these people, thousands, if not millions of people who had out of body death experiences, and they all had the same experience. They found their spirits, whatever it was, lifting up, looking down at their bodies. And then they saw this light, and then the light was beckoning them, and it was so wonderful. They couldn't wait to whatever. But there's so much evidence that there's something else. So it's a great transition. It's a great transition.
Yeah, I love years ago, Anita Morgiani. I don't know if I say her last name right. I could spell it. That was one of the first ones I ever listened to, and she's all about love. I don't know if you've listened to her talks, but I got together with a bunch of friends from high school quite a few years ago, and one had seen her in person.
Oh, wow.
One's religion didn't allow her to listen, so she went to another room, and the rest of us just gathered and listened. And my kids got so sick of it. Oh, are you listening to her again? But it was most uplifting, powerful.
Well, I have to get it. I don't know her.
She's so great. I mean, and she's funny and she's brilliant, and just she had fourth stage cancer. She was minutes, I mean, hours from dying in the hospital.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's
so good.
Wow. Yeah. It reminds me of a woman I met. She works as a cancer coach now. Turned out she didn't live very far from me. And I went to see her.
Cancer coach. I've never heard of that. There are coaches for everything.
Exactly. But this was it. Like you need need a coach to get your positivity going every day. Get a coach to is this doctor, should I trust this doctor? Whatever, all kinds of questions. And one of the, and here's her pitch. This is her pitch. She was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She was in her early 40s. She had 2 teenage daughters. Say goodbye to your daughters, get your affairs in order. Sorry, this is not looking good. And that was 25 years ago. And I'm working with her she's my cancer coach, right? So one of the first things I said to her, I said, how did this happen? Doctors say to you. And she said she went to speak to her oncologist, her cancer doctor. And the first thing he said to her was, how are you going to heal yourself?
There you go.
In other words, we invest all this power in our doctors, like we have to, but it's it's a partnership. It's got to be a dance. It's got to be you are it. You're the star. You're the star of the show.
She got lucky with that doctor.
She did. But that's why I'm writing the 5 Blessings of Cancer.
Yeah, no, that's so great. Well, you're coming from a man's world of investments from years ago in that jungle with all those men. Is it hard for you? You must have gotten really tough from being in that world. Is it hard for you to get soft and relax and not have that tough kind of exterior or no?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I've never been asked that before. And what comes to mind is the irony of it is that I was such a successful investment banker because I was great at bringing in new clients to the business. And what made me great? Because I had all those soft skills. I could create relationships. I would, instead of talking about me, I'd get them to talk about themselves. I would figure out ways, where I could show that I really understood their needs, brought the right people in to talk to them, got to know their families, the kids' birthdays, all of that. And it's not rocket science. It's not that you're there were tough bankers there, but they worked for me because I had the client. If you didn't have the client, you had no business. For the traders, the tough traders.
So the answer to that is no, you didn't have to work at getting soft.
Not only that, it was an advantage. It was an advantage. It was such it was a time where there was, women were not even made managing directors. So there was a lot of discrimination, gender discrimination. But that now it's changed. It's changed.
No,
so it was still tough.
It hasn't. It hasn't. That's the area of law. It's the area of law I practice, and I have plenty of cases of gender discrimination that I'm fighting, and equal pay for the same job and the whole thing. It's awful. And pregnancy discrimination cases. I've always, in 23 years, had pregnancy discrimination. You'd think that there wouldn't be, but yeah.
Well, look on the bright side, Lauren. You have a thriving business.
Yeah, I know. My practice
and those your clients are very fortunate to have you. So
yeah,
but yeah.
So as far as community goes, you speak a lot about your church, and I know you were very open with your church about everything you were going through. I think community is so important. Do you want to talk about that at all? And what community does for you?
But I think there were lots of communities. In fact, over the months after my final treatment, and I was still, recovering, I would visit people and they would say, "Oh, my church has been praying for you," or, my Aunt Harriet in Kansas City is praying for you. I mean, I had people praying for me I didn't even know.
How did that come about?
Well, you have, we have friends, they have friends. They figure that friend loves me, then they love me too. And I believe in the power of prayer. So let's get the prayer machine going. Yeah, no, there's no question that the most important thing in the, one of the blessings is that it's what I think is tragic is when people have cancer and they feel they have to shut people out because, we're all, let's face it, we're all scared of it, right? And so a lot of people find it's uncomfortable to be with you. And then sometimes you feel like, oh, I just don't want to bother them. I'm telling you, bother them. Get them to, build your team. You need a team to get through this. You need a team to be cheering you to. I did not go to one treatment by myself. Now, I don't have a family network. So, but my friends and a friend of a friend, she had gone through cancer treatments and she knew me just not well at all, but she heard what happened and she called me. She said, I want to go to a treatment with you because she knew how important that was. So that's number one. Don't go to anything by yourself and let people in. People want to love you. People want to feel that they can be part of a miracle.
That is so great. Is there something else you tell somebody that's having a hard time? It might not even be cancer, but so clearly tell somebody and let them in.
Let them in.
Don't go through it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when bad things happen, this is it's funny. It's almost like I had training for this. I had 3 close friends, all of whom were going through, I think I mentioned this, all of whom had different kinds of cancers and all 3 of them transitioned. But I was so privileged to be on their journeys with them. And I learned a lot about courage in those experiences. So I think you asked the question, well, it may not be cancer, but something else has happened that's really challenging, that's difficult, that's scary. What's one of the most important things to do is you have to get to acceptance. Sometimes that's hard. You say, well, why me, right? No, this is not happening to me. I don't want this happening to me. I remember early on, at night, I would just scream into my pillow. And, gradually you just say, okay, well, this is what's happening. And it doesn't define who I am, but I get to choose how I'm going to deal with this. I get to choose how I'm going to embrace this and triumph over it.
Acceptance and then an attitude shift.
So big. It's so big. And it doesn't come easy. It doesn't come easy.
Middle of the night's never the best time, huh? Now, you had some interesting messages of hope that you had mentioned to me earlier before we were recording that you had seen. Yeah.
What was that? What was that? Let's see.
And signs of hope that you had seen. Are there any practices that you do on a regular basis that help you maintain or keep a positive mindset?
Oh, okay. In fact, I have right here 99 healing practices.
99?
99. Those are the ones that I developed. Okay. So, for example, things that nobody does this. Why not? When you go to chemo, go to chemo, set up an altar. Bring your special things from home, and put it on a shelf or something. So you feel protected. You feel at home.
So you could also do that maybe when you're traveling or if you're going someplace that you don't want to go, particularly the dentist. No offense to any dentist listening, or wherever it is, might be. Not that going to the dentist is anything close to as bad as chemo, but yes.
So let's see. So things like that. This is an interesting story. When I, again, like you have to maintain the fact that you're the captain of the team. You are the CEO of the business. So one of my doctors kept telling me that she was worried I was getting cognitively impaired by these treatments. And I said, no, I'm fine. I remember everything. I don't forget anything. She said, no, I want you to go see you're laughing about this. Did I tell you this story?
No, but I can't even imagine somebody's telling you that. Right?
So I said, oh God. So then she kind of twisted. She almost blackmailed me. I can't remember what she did, but I ended up going to see this cognitive person. And, and it was supposed to be, she said, well, this could take 2 to 3 hours. I said, no way, Jose. And I was out of there in an hour and a half. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, what are these numbers? 5799, 5799. Okay, what about these letters? So we went through all this. And it wasn't until a few days later that I realized, I said to the doctor, I said, what made you think that I was cognitively impaired? She said, well, because you keep asking me questions about what is, the prognosis of my cancer now or whatever. You keep asking me the same questions. And I thought about it. I said, oh, now I get it. I said, and I didn't tell her this, but I realized that I kept asking questions because I never understood her answers. So I would go to the nurse. I would talk to the nurse and she would give me the answer that I understood. So in other words, there's the context, right? Again, it's really important. And this is something I have to tell you, I could almost, this was like fun. This was fun. Okay. It sounds weird. But when I first started with radiation treatments, and what would happen is I would go, it was in fact, it was February 2 years ago. So I would go to the place where I would get the treatment, and I'd walk in, and there was this large waiting room, and everybody's sitting there like it's a funeral parlor. Nobody's smiling, hardly anybody's talking, So I would go in, I'd find an empty seat, and I'd sit down and go, hey, how you doing this morning? and we'd start talking, and then somebody else would talk, and then somebody would talk, and I'd say something to make people laugh, and someone else would laugh. And next thing you know, the whole temperature in the room changed.
Right.
And it wasn't just because they turned up the heat.
Right. You get the frequency, the whole, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people wanted to be connected. They wanted to be alive. Be alive. We're alive today. Yay. So it was a challenge, but it was so delicious to see how easy it was. And I challenge people that run cancer hospitals. Why does this happen? Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to judge, but it wasn't difficult to change that emotional temperature. And what do we know? We know that positive endorphins are healing. They're healing. They heal us.
Yeah. And people need connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And here were all these people, we were sharing the same experience. It wasn't the best. Oh, and by the way, like, little things, again, tips for healing. Peggy Huddleston, who's written the most wonderful book about having the best surgery ever. Her book is now recommended by many hospitals. She worked with me on creating visualization practices, again, healing practices. So whenever I went to get the radiation, I would imagine the soft rain falling on the parched earth. So meanwhile, the radiation machine is going, and I'm thinking, the soft rain is falling on the parched earth. So, I mean, there's just different ways. You have to create your reality. You have to create your reality, and you create teams too. What did I do? When I got the radiation, the people would put a sheet over me so they would get to see my feet and my head. So I started wearing really crazy socks. To entertain them. I had Beatles socks. I had, springtime socks, all kinds. And my last day there, I brought everyone on the team a pair of socks.
That's good. I like that. For some reason, you're making me remember. First time I ever heard about visualization, I must have been pretty young. My mom's mom passed away from breast cancer when she was 3. My mom got it very young, and then she got it again, maybe a decade later, and she passed away. But I must have been 18, maybe younger. I started doing visualization of healing on my body, and I don't know, have any idea. And yes, I got tested for the gene and everything else and don't have it, which doesn't mean it's not my family. It just means I don't have it. So my daughter doesn't have it. But I started doing visualization for like anti-breast cancer visualizations at a very young age.
What did you visualize?
I don't even want to say
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I came up with it on my own, and
Yeah.
because I was just like, oh, I'm going to do visualizations.
Yeah.
I just did my own healing. It's not like I read what to do. I just started doing it very
Nice.
young. So
Nice.
yeah, I don't know why you just made me remember that.
The spiritual lawyer.
Yeah, right. Hey, we meditate in my back when we used to have go to offices, we meditate in the
Yeah.
afternoons.
Oh, that's great.
It's not required, but just so
Yeah.
people can chill a little bit. So do you have any messages of hope that you would want to give that you haven't discussed?
Well, okay, let me tell a story. This is a really important story, and particularly for the mission that you've taken on in the world, Lauren. 52 weeks of hope. What a gift! Now that's a gift. Well, one of my most hopeful stories. Okay, so imagine 9/11. Okay, and it is the day after, 2 days after 9/11. And at nighttime I can still smell the burning buildings, the burning bodies. I mean, you close the window, but it would seep into the window. I decided to meet up with one of my ministers from the church I was going to at Bryant Park, which is right behind the New York Public Library. And so I was arriving to greet him. I started walking upstairs, and there was this long long pathway in front of me. And at the very end, there was an elderly man with a sandwich sign, wearing a sandwich sign like people did back in the Depression. I mean, he didn't even look like he belonged in this century or in, that time frame. But he had the sign, and on the sign, this is the day after 9/11, it said HOPE in letters down one side of the sign. And then after each letter were these words: help other people every day. Now, that is powerful, because I would say that, what I knew to boost my healing, that's one of the ways to boost my healing. You help other people every day because it makes you feel good, and it makes them feel good. And it's how hope gets created. It's a hope incubation tool.
That is a great story, Laura.
Thank you. Isn't it? Yes, I saved it for you.
Yay. Thank you so much for being a guest today on 52 Weeks of Hope.
Thank you, Lauren, and to everybody out there, never give up hope.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and take with you Laura's message that our words are how we create hope for ourselves and others, and to stay open and listen to what's really going on, what your gut is telling you. Be sure to tune in next week when the amazing acupuncturist Teresa Wozniak joins us discussing how we can heal ourselves from the inside out. Teresa heals everything from stomach issues to fertility problems to menopause and perimenopause, neck problems. She's just amazing. Hear her suggestions for how to feel better right away and reach your optimal state of health right now. You'll love her calming presence and energy. You can feel it even virtually. Be sure to tune in next week to hear Teresa. She's amazing. If you're on Clubhouse, be sure to join me in a room on Tuesdays and say hi. Be sure to let me know that you're there. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a positive review, and send us feedback on our website, 52weeksofhope.com. I'm Lauren Abrams. Thanks for listening.